I'm Liz from Caravan Guard Insurance. Now, owning a motorhome definitely gives you the freedom to explore, and with all the facilities on board you can easily disconnect from the grid and head to a rural location away from the crowds and maybe save a bit of money along the way. Going off-grid doesn't mean going off-road. Off-grid motorhoming is all about staying in road accessible places without electric hookup or full facilities. From certificated sites, pub car parks and even secluded forest edges, it's about freedom, flexibility and a little bit of self-sufficiency. In this video we're joined by experienced off-grid motorhomers Jon and Tash, also known as Life Beyond Bricks, and we'll be asking them for their top tips and the key considerations when motorhoming off-grid. So let's start by asking, what is off-grid motorhoming?
Off-grid motorhoming to us is being able to sort of unplug from services, being able to have more freedom, not just to go to the mainstream campsites, but also go to the sort of lesser known, the CL sites and the CS sites.
So the benefits of going off-grid, as cliche as it sounds, but it is about the freedom. It's the freedom to explore places, personally for us, away from the crowds, you know, being able to go to some real nice nature spots, beauty spots, and the variety as well, because it doesn't all look the same. So one time we could be, you know, like we were the other week at a farm stop and we wake up and you see all the llamas and stuff around, but another time we might be by a canal and you have that as a different view. And I think as well, being off-grid, I like it because you're on your own schedule, you're not on someone else's schedule, so we can come and go, you know, respectfully but as we please. So for us, going off-grid is now a way of life, but for those that are new to motorhoming or new to the concept of going off-grid, or actually just curious and want to give it a go, just be aware that there is some planning that will be required. Things like, you know, where you're going to get your water from, where you're going to empty your toilet, where you're going to get your gas from before you go. Those are all crucial elements that will need to be considered beforehand. So I would usually plan off-grid trips mainly using apps like Park for Night, Search for Sites, sometimes as well using recommendations I've seen on social media, and other times it will just be places that we've seen when we're on another trip. So sometimes we'll make a note of somewhere and I'll be like, oh, we need to go back there. So it's a combination of all those things. So when planning off-grid stays, particularly depending on the size of your leisure vehicle, there's lots of considerations to make, such as access roads, if places have height barriers, and it can even get down to things like how level it is, because obviously depending on where you're staying, it might not be a good idea to be able to use levelling ramps. You might not be able to do that, or it might be that it's just too slopey. I've seen some before where, you know, the car park says you can park there, but actually it's just not comfortable.
There are lots and lots of places if you start looking, lots of organisations as well that we use. So we use Park for Night, Search for Sites, we use the club sites as well, the CLs and the CSs, which are the certified listed sites. So there's also pub stops, farm stops, Brit stops as well. We use Brit stops quite a bit. Authorised car parks as well. So a lot of leisure centres allow overnight parking as well. And then they do also have the facilities as well if you don't want to use your van. The way we manage power, a typical setup would be having a large battery bank really. Motorhome manufacturers now are offering lithium options from the factory, so a lot of that is selectable. This particular van has quite a unique setup. So we do have inverters, which means you can use all of the 230-volt appliances, so things like coffee machines, hair dryers. We could even use things like the electric hot plate off-grid as well. Solar panels, really good, easy, and it is free energy as well at the moment. Most manufacturers will put them on the vans, but generally they'll only be like a 100-watt solar panel or something like that. A lot of the times they do need to be upped a little bit, unless you've got a very large battery bank. We also use diesel heater as well, so we retained the standard gas heating, the Truma gas heating in this, but we also added a diesel blown air heater. And that gives us dual fuel capability really, so where we've got Gaslow refillable LPG, but that is getting a little bit more scarce to find these days. So sometimes you might have to drive an hour out just to go and get gas. So the reason we put diesel in is because we can tap into the main diesel tank of the vehicle, and obviously you're always going to be able to get diesel everywhere, and that gives us the alternative fuel to run for the heating, because the heating is generally the most intensive part. Does everyone need lithium? Not everybody. It does really depend on your circumstances, how heavy you are on power usage and how often you use your van, what time of year you're using your van as well. You can get by with absolutely fine with whatever the manufacturer gives you, depending on how much power you use. Another great option these days is the solar generators, or what they call solar generators, large battery banks that are portable, that you can add solar panels to as well, and that can really extend your off-grid capabilities as well. So my top tip for considering going off-grid for the first time is go somewhere close to home. Find somewhere that is easy to get to. You don't have to go too far, and then just start testing it out. Just go out and do one night to start with, and then see if you can make 2 nights, and then obviously work up from there. That way you'll get an idea of how long your battery is going to last, and whether you do actually need like a massive setup, or you can make do with what the van's already got, or you need to go maybe to the intermediate stage, which is like a solar generator, power bank. Staying warm off-grid, a really good tip, where especially with the Trima systems, it's actually to use them on, or turn the water heating portion off and just use the heating, maybe turn the heating down a little bit like you normally would. So for the fridge, we generally run it on gas, but we do have a setup where we can run it also on electric. If you have got a compressor fridge, again, that is also going to run on the battery all the time. So again, you would ideally need a solar panel with that as well. So staying warm and comfortable in the motorhome, there's lots of ways. You've got extra packs of clothes, you can have blankets and stuff like that. We actually use sleeping bags, because maybe one of you sleeps quite cold, one of you sleeps quite hot, so you can actually then have different season sleeping bags for both of you. So yeah, that works quite well.
Managing water when you're going off grid, I think the first step is it actually comes down to the planning. So it depends if you're going off to an off-grid campsite, because obviously you're going to have access to water there, so you won't need to worry about the water that you take with you. But if you're going to other sites such as pub stops, farm stops, authorised car parks, you're not going to have access to that. So you're going to want to do things like filling up with water before you go. But I will add that obviously it does affect the handling of your vehicle, so don't fill it up all the way. And then there's other top tips as well when off-gridding. So maybe having a refillable water container that you can take with you. So if you find a fresh water point that they sometimes have out and about, you can fill that up and take it back to your vehicle. Only using what you need. It may sound silly, but things like, don't keep the tap running while you're brushing your teeth. Only boil the water that you actually need in the kettle, so you're not using more than you need. If you do shower in your unit, like we do, turn it off, the old lather, rinse, lather, that sort of thing. They can all help you save water. And whilst we're talking about showers and washing, and a great tip on saving water is to, if you get caught short and you run out of water, we use shower wipes that are really good, or you can just wash in the sink, do it the old-fashioned way. And another top tip actually, when I think about it on saving water, is cooking one-pot meals, because obviously you're using less cutlery, less crockery, which means less washing up, which is always a bonus.
So using a motorhome off-grid, obviously at some stage the toilet is going to become full. So there are a few little tips that we would use to go through to actually prolong those periods between emptying. So one of the things we do is we actually bag the toilet tissue, just like similar to what you do in some of the foreign countries that we go to. They don't put any of the paper down the loo, or we bag that up separately and dispose of that responsibly. If you can find public toilets or some of the pubs you'll be able to stop in, they will have toilets as well. Third point, inevitably, if you are going to want to go extended stops, is perhaps purchase another toilet cassette. They are designed to be put in situ, and once they're closed, they're closed. So you can just buy another toilet cassette. So where we would empty our toilet cassette is always at the designated points. All of the campsites will have. So some campsites will also have, they will allow service stops. So you pay a small fee, you can go into them sometimes and empty your grey water, empty your toilet cassette and fill up with fresh water. Some campsites will allow that. Also, another point to mention is try and use a toilet fluid, which is like a green chemical, environmentally friendly one, because some of these places you'll go, they will be on septic tanks, so you will need to use, if you're always using that fluid, you always know you're going to be able to empty.
So when talking about the bits of kit that we would recommend for going off-grid touring, the first thing I'd like to say is you don't need to rush out and fill up your van life bingo card. You don't have to rush out and buy all the things. It's a really good idea to build your kit up as you go, figure out what you need, what you actually use, and then it saves you actually on carrying around stuff you don't need.
First bit of kit I would recommend is a solar panel. If it's not on the top of the van, you can always get freestanding ones. Lots of sizes are available.
If you, like me, don't like being cold, carry extra blankets. One thing I do like is slippers, because I don't like having cold feet, so I would always recommend them, and they're good for inside the van. And maybe a decent jumper that could double up for during the day, but also for the evening.
So the next bit of really good kit to have would be power bank. You can start off with the power banks that just do your phones, and then you can move all the way up to the larger power banks, which can even run 3-pin plug devices as well, obviously within the wattage of the power bank that you're using. Again, these also do attach to the solar panels we were talking about earlier.
Head torches, which might sound simple, but especially when you're going off-grid, a lot of places aren't going to be particularly well lit. We've even had experience if the toilets don't have any lights in them, so for nighttime toilet use, head torch is essential. And on that note as well, a good thing to have would be camping lanterns, because you can use them inside or outside, and it's a good way to conserve your energy on your lights in the van.
You need to remember when you're off-grid that you're not always going to have mains voltage unless you've got an inverter in the van already. So do consider all the devices you buy, consider buying 12-volt versions of those. The vacuum cleaner you buy, it has got a 12-volt adapter to charge it, because a lot of them will just come with the household plugs. Things like TVs, etc. like that, you want those to be 12-volt as well.
So another bit of essential kit would be obviously your levelling chocks, because the likelihood is most of the places you're going aren't going to be particularly level, and being that you're going to be outside probably quite a lot, I think my last couple of bits of essential kit would be things like insect repellents, maybe a bite kit or a bite pen, just in case you get bit by any nasties.
One of the portable gas stoves is a really good bit of kit to have as well, if you really want to conserve the gas you're using inside your vehicle. Obviously you can use that for an emergency cup of tea.
So following on from that very important point that Jon just made, if like me you love your hot drinks, one top bit of kit that I would carry is my stovetop kettle. So I think when going off-grid, it'd be natural for people to worry about things that could go wrong. But I would say realistically, there's probably only 3 things that could go majorly wrong. You could run out of water, run out of gas, or run out of power. The beauty of going off-grid, as we've already mentioned, the freedom to come and go as you please, and you're in your motorhome, you can resolve those by going for a nice long drive, recharging, and then you can go and find those resources that you've run out of. So one of the big considerations, or one of the big things about going off-grid, is to be respectful of the area that you're in, and to follow rules and regulations set by the organisation or the owners of the places that you're staying. For example, and we've had it where you go to a pub stop, maybe you stay at the weekend, but the next day is a Sunday, and the pub will actually need you to leave, or politely request that you can leave by sort of 11:30 in the morning, because they're going to have their big lunchtime rush come in and they're going to need that car park.
Some places you are literally in a car park, so you are effectively using a parking space. So don't get your tables and chairs out, don't get your awning out or anything like that. Absolutely, definitely do not empty your toilet waste anywhere where it shouldn't be emptied. Take all your rubbish away. You can carry litter pickers around with you as well, so if you do find somewhere that is particularly got a lot of litter, you can go around and actually pick litter up, so you are going to make the place better than what it was when you arrived.
Obviously safety is a big concern, but there are a number of ways that you can feel safe and stay safe when you're off-grid. You might think about putting external security locks on your van. You could put CCTV in, so we do actually have CCTV in the van and around the van, but it's also about visual deterrence as well, so things like signage that warn people that you've got CCTV or there's dogs on board or something like that. So I think one of my top tips for staying safe when going off-grid is not actually a piece of equipment, it's using your own intuition. So I came up with a bit of a tagline, if your gut says no, go. And I use it when I'm touring on my own, but even if we're touring in a couple, if one of you's getting a vibe that something is off or it doesn't feel right, then don't stay there. That's the best way to stay safe, is to stay where it feels comfortable.
So there you go, with a bit of planning, going off-grid in your motorhome can be one of the best things about motorhoming. As Jon and Tash said, start with a night or two close to home to test things out, and then as your confidence grows, so will your off-grid adventures. Also make sure that your motorhome insurance policy is up to date and that you're covered for going off-grid, as well as making sure that you have good breakdown cover that includes things like recovering your motorhome if you were ever to get stuck in the mud. This is included in Caravan Guard's policy. And it goes without saying to make sure your motorhome is regularly serviced so it's in good shape for taking on those off-grid adventures. A huge thank you to Jon and Tash, and for more motorhoming hints and tips, why not head on over to the Caravan Guard website. Please like and share this video, and if you have any other tips for taking your motorhome off-grid, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below.